How's it going, family? Powerful Lion, 50 the Mystic. Yes, before we get into today's verse, don't forget, if you want to get these teachings more structured in playlists, I've got them up on YouTube as well. We've grouped them into the separate playlists so you don't have to surf through all the videos on TikTok and look for videos. These same videos also loaded up on YouTube as well, where I've got playlists for the different themes we've covered so far. But let's get into Exodus 20 verse 14. Shocking one. Ooh. Let's look at it. It says, you shall not commit adultery. Famous one everyone uses to always to guilt trip you the hell out of you in church every Sunday. But let's look at it. It speaks about far beyond just sexual behavior. In allegory, adultery represents betrayal of covenant, fragmentation of loyalty, and the breaking of sacred bonds. A covenant is any union formed to carry life, trust, stability, and continuity. Marriage is one expression, but the principle applies to every space where faithfulness sustains order. To commit adultery symbolically is to introduce division into what was meant to be unified. This in itself means adultery is the act of mixing what should remain whole. It is the corruption of trust by desire, the substitution of impulse for commitment, and the elevation of appetite over responsibility. Where murder destroys life force, adultery destabilizes life structure. It does not kill immediately, it erodes slowly. It dissolves intimacy, fractures family, and poisons future generations through broken trust. On a deeper symbolic level, adultery represents spiritual unfaithfulness. How many of us are committing adultery with our own faith and beliefs? It is the moment when the heart abandons its highest truth for temporary gratification. This can manifest as abandoning values for advantage, integrity for pleasure, or purpose for distraction. Anytime a person betrays their deepest alignment to satisfy a lower urge, the spirit of adultery is present. Marriage and allegory symbolize unity between mind and body, intention and action, word and deed. Adultery represents internal contradiction where one part of the self promises while another secretly defects. This inner adultery creates instability, guilt, and fragmentation within the system of the body. Therefore, this symbolizes the protection of sacred unions, defends loyalty, coherence, and trust of pillars of life. The command calls for wholeness, not division. It invites faithfulness not only to partners but to truth. Purpose and self-integrity. Where fidelity is honored, life remains stable. Where it is violated, chaos quietly enters. Man, you can do so many things in the dark. It always fascinates me. People do the funniest things in the dark, and then they go to church on a Sunday to pray for forgiveness. Okay, that's not how this thing works. I don't know who lied to you that's how you can't lie to yourself. God dwells within you. Who are you lying to? Sky Daddy. Stop believing in a Sky Daddy. Come on now. Now the description itself addresses attachment, impulse regulation, and the integrity of bonding systems. Adultery represents a breakdown in neural commitment where short-term reward overrides long-term attachment. In the brain, this occurs when dopaminergic reward circuits dominate over prefrontal regulation and oxytocin-based bonding systems. Desire seeks novelty and stimulation, while commitment requires restraint, memory, and future orientation. This command protects the brain from fragmenting these systems. Biologically, pair bonding stabilizes the nervous system. Consistent attachment supports emotional regulation, trust, and safety. When fidelity is maintained, the brain experiences coherence between desire, behavior, and identity. When adultery occurs, this coherence breaks. The nervous system enters a state of secrecy and vigilance. Cortisol increases, anxiety rises, and cognitive load expands as the mind manages deception, guilt, and divided attention. The body carries the conflict as tension, fatigue, and emotional volatility. Anatomically, adultery also impacts the heart and gut system, areas deeply involved in emotional process. Betrayal activates threat responses similar to physical danger. The body interprets broken trust as loss of safety. This affects sleep, digestion, immune response, and long-term health. The command, therefore, functions as a biological safeguard, not a moral burden. This law also applies inwardly. When a person repeatedly violates their own commitments, promising discipline but choosing impulse, the brain learns distrust toward itself. Set your mind on the right path, otherwise you are literally committing adultery in your own mind. When you say you're going to do something, do it. Self-regulation weakens when you don't do this. Your own confidence erodes, internal instability grows. Fidelity to commitment strengthens neural pathways of discipline and integrity. Now, this scripture encodes a neurological truth. Stability, trust, and peace emerge when desire is governed rather than indulged. Faithfulness preserves the body's capacity for deep connection and sustained emotional health. Now, the scripture reflects the principle of coherence, continuity, and faithful union. In nature, stable systems thrive when bonds are honored. Cells replicate accurately when genetic codes remain intact. Ecosystems flourish when symbiotic relationships are respected. When bonds are violated, systems destabilize. Adultery in cosmic terms represents a breach of energetic agreement that introduces disorder into a structure designed for continuity. Nature teaches that creation operates through faithful pairing and consistency. While nature includes diversity and variation, stability arises from reliable bonds. When elements that are meant to function together separate prematurely or dishonestly, decay follows. In human systems, adultery disrupts the energetic contract that allows trust, safety, and growth to exist. This disruption ripples outward, affecting families, communities, and generational patterns. This cosmic law in itself also teaches that energy invested in multiple conflicting directions weakens all outcomes. When loyalty is divided, energy leaks. In physics, a system with competing vectors loses efficiency in life divided. Commitment produces instability, secrecy, and fragmentation. Adultery violates the law-focused alignment. Instead of energy flowing cleanly through one channel, it scatters. The natural consequence is not punishment, but imbalance. Trust erodes. Emotional climate shifts. Stability dissolves. Nature responds to broken bonds with corrective forces, exposure, breakdown, or separation until coherence is restored. Therefore, the scripture aligns with the cosmic requirement that unions meant to sustain life must be protected. Faithfulness preserves order. Betrayal introduces entropy. This command safeguards the energetic architecture of relationships so that creation can continue without collapse in itself. Now, the scripture calls for integrity in how you form, maintain, and protect bonds. Adultery is not only a physical act, it is any decision that places momentary desire above long-term trust. In daily life, this command asks you to treat commitment as sacred. Within marriage, partnership, personal vows you make to yourself. Faithfulness is not sustained by emotion alone, it is sustained by discipline, boundaries, and conscious choice. In practice, this means guarding access to intimacy. You do not place yourself in situations where impulse can override principle. You're honest about your vulnerabilities instead of feeding secrecy. You choose clarity over thrill. Many betrayals begin long before action. They begin in private allowances, rationalizations, and emotional leakage. This command invites you to close those doors early. There's no such thing as mistakes. More often than not, your dizzy mind was already there. By the time it happens, you had already opened the doors for certain things to happen. Whether it's in a relationship, whether it's you betraying yourself mentally against the actions you said you are going to carry out. The verse also applies inwardly. Every time you abandon your values for convenience, promise change and choose comfort, or commit to growth and retreat into habit, you practice inner adultery. Over time, this weakens self-trust. Living faithfully means doing what you said you would do even when motivation fades. When you run that business, even when you're having a crap day, get off your butt and go out there and work. Self-respect grows when consistency replaces contradiction. In relationships, the scripture teaches that trust is built through predictability and honesty. You do not manipulate, triangulate, or keep emotional exits open. You invest fully where you are planted, or you leave with integrity. Half commitment breeds instability. Ultimately, this command protects peace. Faithfulness reduces chaos, anxiety, and fragmentation. It creates environments where love can mature instead of constantly repairing damage. For lack of better words, learn to grow up. Because this teaches that loyalty is not restriction. It is the structure that allows intimacy, growth, and life to flourish without fear. Then the next one, we're covering another very short little verse. Exodus 20 verse 15, which says, "You shall not steal." Till next time, family, stay safe, stay blessed.